Unit 5, Listening 1, Activity A.
Writers have always had a hard time getting published. There have always been a few writers who have published their own books, including T.S. Eliot and the children's book author Beatrix Potter. The publishing industry is changing quickly, and self-publishing may be more popular than ever. Michael Andrews talks about the risks some writers have begun to take to make a dream come true.
Just 20 or 30 years ago, a writer basically had one way to get his or her book out there, through a traditional publishing house. Yes, you could publish your own book through a vanity press, but it was embarrassing to admit you had stooped so low. In the typical success story, an agent sold the book to the publisher, and the writer received a huge, or at least modest, advance, followed by royalties year after year. The publisher would provide publicity and the funds for the author to travel around the country promoting the book. Of course, not everyone gets published by a big house. In 1989, John Grisham's first novel, A Time to Kill, was published by a very small publishing company, which only printed 5,000 copies of the book. They didn't provide any financial backing for publicity. Grisham bought 1,000 copies himself, then spent 3 months traveling around the state with the books in the trunk of his car. He visited more than 30 libraries before he finally sold all his copies. After that first book, he was picked up by a bigger publisher and is now a best-selling author. In 2002, 15-year-old Christopher Paolini wrote an adventure novel. For the next couple of years, he revised it. At that time, his parents' income came from a small publishing company they ran. They liked his novel and decided to publish it themselves. Paolini made more than 70 visits to bookstores and schools around the country. He was never home for more than 3 days in a row. Christopher and his parents were exhausted by the demands of printing the book, managing the website, and traveling. Christopher's busy schedule threatened the completion of his second book. Fortunately, the publisher Knopf approached them and bought the rights to the first book and 2 more for $500,000. Brunonia Barry has also followed a non-traditional path to publishing success. When she finished her novel, The Lace Reader, she wanted to find an audience for the book, but she didn't want to spend years trying to get a publisher. She and her husband owned a small software company. They decided to print the book themselves. They risked their savings, spending $50,000 on the publication and publicity. Barry approached book clubs in her hometown and asked if they would be willing to read the book. Readers began to learn about the book from other readers. It started to sell and attracted a big publisher. She sold the rights for $2 million. She said that had she known the difficulty and expense of self-publishing, they might not have done it. Once upon a time, writers took a big risk when they self-published. A real publisher wouldn't consider publishing a book of a writer who had self-published. And it was difficult to get bookstores to stock the book or reviewers to review it. But the publishing industry is changing. A newer publishing model is the e-book. With a much lower cost, writers can produce an electronic copy of their books and sell it for as little as 99 cents. The e-book can expose their work to a much larger audience, or it can disappear. One writer, Amanda Hocking, couldn't get an agent or publisher, so she started to publish her young adult novels as e-books. But not all of her readers have access to e-books, so she wants to publish them as print books.